I never imagined a poor girl could inspire a millionaire CEO's daughter to find joy in life again. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. The air was thick, almost suffocating. I stood there, trembling like a leaf caught in a storm, as my world shattered into pieces. One moment, I had hope. The next, despair ripped it away. There was something mesmerizing about the silence in my friend's mansion. It felt unreal. Gold trim flashed under the light, highlighting the luxury I could only dream of owning. And then there was her Lily, the cold and pristine daughter of the CEO. I could see the weight in her eyes, the sorrow cloaked behind her perfectly painted smile. For me, a girl from the streets, it was like stepping into a world of fairy tales. But I soon learned that even fairy tales hid dark secrets. Each day was a struggle. Piercing hunger gnawed at my insides, but I wore my worn-out shoes with pride. My mother slipped into deeper depression, and my heart ached as I watched her battle her demons. Those endless nights were filled with whispers of hope and fear, tangled together like vines around my soul. But I couldn't lose her. I had to be the spark that kept her alive. Then came the fateful day. Flickers of sunlight danced off the mansion windows as I walked towards Lily, seeking a sliver of friendship. "Are you okay?" I asked, fragile as a whisper, yet deep down I hoped to pull her from the shadows. She looked at me, confusion swimming in her eyes, before a soft tear slid down her cheek. At that moment, I realized just as I yearned for connection, she longed for something more. Of all the opulence surrounding her, it suffocated her spirit. Every delicate crystal clink reminded us of the empty spaces in our hearts. What had we exchanged for these lives? Our stories were cut from the same fabric of pain, just different shades. But, that moment of understanding shifted something inside me. I clutched my chest, feeling the weight lift ever so slightly. Would I be the one to help her find joy again? Or would my desperation pull us both under? My heart raced, questioning if we could change the course of our stories together. As I stood there, unsure and hopeful, an unguarded expression crossed her face. Was it fear or curiosity? And then her fingers brushed mine, a fleeting connection that threatened to unravel both of our worlds. What did that mean for us? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The days blurred together in the mansion, like scenes from a film where the color faded, leaving only the gray of melancholy. I found myself standing in the shadow of luxury, watching Lily from a distance as she moved through the grand corridors with a grace that felt both enchanting and haunting. She exchanged polite smiles with the staff, but her eyes told a different story, one of longing and confinement. Despite the opulence surrounding us, her laughter felt like a ghost, echoing through empty halls. I could see her struggles mirrored in the way she clenched her fists, the way her jaw tightened with unspoken words. It was a silent plea that resonated with my own heartache. I wanted to reach out, to bridge the gap between her beautiful world and my harsh reality, but what could a girl like me possibly offer? One afternoon, while I sat on the floor of the vast library, flipping through a tattered novel, Lily wandered in, her presence filling the room with an urgency I couldn't ignore. "What are you reading?" she asked, a hint of curiosity breaking through her otherwise composed demeanor. I glanced up, surprised by the interest. "It's a story about a girl who learns to fly," I responded, my voice trembling slightly. My mind raced with the metaphor. If only we could learn to soar above our pain, to escape the confines of our pasts and the expectations tying us down. "Can you really fly?" she asked, an earnestness lacing her question, and I felt my heart lift a fraction. "Maybe not with wings," I replied softly, "but we can find our own way to rise." As her gaze met mine, I saw a flicker of something hope. Desire for freedom. But just as quickly, it dimmed. You don't know what it's like, she whispered, her voice a delicate tremor that I didn't know the depth of her battles, but I wanted to. I want to understand, I urged, feeling the connection we shared tighten like a thread spinning between our stories. None of us are alone in our struggles, Lily. Please, let me in. She bit down on her lip, staring intently at the floor, as if the ornate patterns held the answers to all her unspoken fears. The silence spread between us, thick and palpable, until it was punctured by the sound of her hoarse laughter. What a joke, right? Me, a millionaire, afraid of everything. I should be happy. Sometimes happiness is hiding, just out of reach, I replied, emboldened by the vulnerability of the moment. My own fears tethered me to the ground, but sharing my thoughts seemed to lift some of the weights pressing down on her. Do you think we can help each other? She asked, a flicker of desperation sparking anew in her eyes. Before I could answer, the door burst open, and a well-dressed woman strode in, her aura commanding the room. Lily. Your father wants to speak with you, she announced, before turning her attention to me with barely veiled disdain. And you, it's time for you to go home. Remember our arrangement. My chest tightened. Suddenly, it was as if the walls were creeping back, closing in on our fragile connection. I'll see you tomorrow, I said quickly to Lily, my voice barely above a whisper. As I turned to leave, the weight of her gaze lingered, a question unsaid hanging heavily between us. What would happen if we dared to challenge the constraints tightening around us? I walked home that evening with more questions than answers, the horizon darkening like the shadow of uncertainty. Later that night, my mother's voice broke through the unsettling silence of our apartment. Have you been seeing that girl again? The one from the mansion. My heart raced. How much did she know? Just a friend, I replied, careful not to reveal too much. But the worry etched into her features unveiled the reality. She was retreating further into her pain. Promise me you won't get too close, Ellie. Rich people don't keep friends from the streets. They cast you aside when it's convenient. Her words cut deep, echoing the fears I tried to silence. But as I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, I felt an ember of resolution kindling inside me. I couldn't let my mother's fears deter me from this strange connection. That night, as I drifted off to sleep, visions of Lily and the mansion filled my mind. But underneath the surface of shared pain, something dark loomed. Lily's family was intertwined in something far greater than either of us could fathom. What secrets did she hide from her life of luxury? And as my own worries deepened, I couldn't help but wonder, would our connection bring salvation or destruction? And then, just before I closed my eyes, a thought struck me like a jolt of lightning. If Lily had her own demons, could facing them together unearth something even more daunting? Would we be the architects of our own downfalls, or would that bond grant us the strength to break free from our scripted fates? The answers danced just out of reach, and I fell into a troubled sleep, haunted by what tomorrow might bring. The sun crept over the skyline like a cautious lover, awakening the world with a quiet promise. Yet as I readied myself for another day, the weight of uncertainty clung to me like a heavy cloak. I peered into the mirror, searching for the courage I knew I would need that morning, heart racing at the thought of Lily. Our fragile bond had sparked a flicker of hope, and yet, the distance between our worlds felt insurmountable. As I walked the familiar streets, shadows of doubt chased me. What did I even possess that could help someone like her? My mother's warning echoed in my mind, creating a cacophony of fears. I knew I couldn't let it stifle me. I had to find Lily again. Perhaps we could face our respective demons together. It might just be the ticket to our escape. When I arrived at the mansion, its opulence stunned me as always. Yet today, it felt like a gilded cage, trapping the beauty inside but forcing it to fade amidst the bareness of heartbreak. The staff greeted me with polite smiles, but I could sense their lingering concern, as if they were guarding secrets I was not yet aware of. As I made my way through the grand corridors, I noticed a slight commotion in a distant corner of the house. An argument, sharp and heated, cut through the usual calm. Curiosity pulling me forward, I peered into the room and saw Lily, her father towering over her, a figure forged in authority and impatience, his gestures animated with frustration. "I want to have you making a scene, Lily. You will marry the right man and you will do it soon," he barked, his voice echoing off the opulent walls. Lily's defiance was palpable. "You don't understand. You're trying to cage me, and I refuse to live my life the way you want." For a brief moment, her fierce spirit illuminated her surroundings, revealing a spirited fire hidden beneath the delicate exterior that I stepped back, heart racing, torn between the impulse to help and the risk of stepping too far into her world. Just as swiftly, she noticed me, her gaze catching mine, a silent plea in the depths of her blue eyes. "Ellie," she murmured, her voice steady despite the storm brewing in her heart. Can you come in, please?" With a small nod, I entered, tentatively crossing the threshold like a moth drawn to the flame of her light. Lily's father dismissed me with a glare, but the moment didn't last. He stormed out, leaving a heavy silence in his wake. "Sorry you had to see that," she whispered, her voice cracking slightly. "Every day feels like a negotiation for my soul." I stepped closer, wrapping my arms around her in a tender embrace. It felt like a lifeline thrown into turbulent waters. "You deserve to be free, to choose. Do you really think it's that easy?" she muttered, her voice muffled against my shoulder. "I live in a house built on expectations and promises I never made. I don't know how to break away." "Then let us figure it out together," I replied, determined yet frightened. "You're not alone in this." As she pulled back, I could see the afterglow of something fragile, a flicker of hope stirring beneath layers of fear. The thought of taking actions together brought warmth to the space between us, but before I could voice my next thought, the weight of a revelation collided with me. "What if you leave this place?" I asked, my heart racing at the very idea. The thought felt radical yet freeing. "I mean, what if you just left everything behind?" Her eyes widened while uncertainty flickered in her gaze. "Leave? Where would I go? I don't even know how to survive outside this bubble." "You could come with me back to my home," I suggested, my voice barely above a whisper, the fear of the consequences heavy in the air. It was a reckless offer, one I hadn't considered fully until the words left my lips. Lily bit her lip, hesitation painting her features. "What if your world is just as suffocating?" she pondered, her breath shaky. A crash echoed down the corridor, followed by hurried footsteps. Panic flooded her face. "It can't be, I have to go," she gasped. "My father, he can't see you here. If he finds out I confided in you." Without thinking, I grabbed her hand, pulling her behind the enormous bookshelf, which also discreetly doubled as a hiding place. We huddled there, breathless and wide-eyed, as the footsteps grew louder and then paused just outside the door. Seconds stretched into an eternity as we remained hidden, hearts echoing the unspoken fears of being discovered. That I dared to peek through a sliver between the shelves, only to catch a glimpse of Lily's father, tense and demanding, shaking his head in frustration. "No more distractions, Lily. Do you understand me?" "I'll be waiting for you," I whispered urgently, still holding her hand tight enough to prove that we were tethered together, battling our circumstances side by side. His voice faded, the tension dissolving just enough for me to breathe, yet fear clawed at my insides as I faced Lily. There was so much to lose. "I didn't mean to," she began, but my heart betrayed me, and a truth escaped. "If we're going to do this, we can't be afraid to break a few rules," I said forcefully, fueling the fire of rebellion burning between us. The moment hung heavy, and just as I was preparing to move forward, a subtle shift in the atmosphere felt grave. I glanced towards the door, and in that instant, a shadow loomed larger than any fear we held. "That's when you'll understand how cruel the dark can be," her father's voice echoed in the distance, fading into the reverberation of doom. The word struck me like a thunderclap, realization dawning. Lily's rebellion might just ignite a storm neither of us could escape. That we were on the precipice of something dreadful, and in our pursuit of freedom, dread wrapped closer around us like a shroud. What had we unleashed by stepping into each other's lives? Mingling our worlds could become a dangerous gamble, and we were merely two girls in a chess match with kings who played by their own rules. Lily's trembling hand squeezed mine as silent agreement, yet the gravity of our choices weighed upon us like chains. As I held her gaze, I realized, our steps would lead us deeper into a confrontation with the darkness, not only in her world but perhaps even in mine. And with that shared resolution, I knew we were just beginning to navigate a treacherous path. When the door finally creaked open, what would await on the other side would not only change both our lives but set us on a collision course with the chaos brewing around us. I held my breath, knowing the moment would redefine our existence together. It was either a chance at liberation or the height of destruction. And the world would watch as we teetered on the edge. The silence after her father left felt deafening, a stark contrast to the shouting that had just filled the room. We remained in our hiding place, hearts racing like a drumbeat echoing in the void, a shared pulse of fear and determination. I could barely hear my own thoughts over the sound of Lily's quickened breath. "I can't stay here," she murmured, the conviction in her voice intermingled with doubt. "This everything, it's unbearable. But what if it gets worse? What if leaving my father only brings his wrath down on you?" Every word she spoke felt like a dagger slicing through my resolve. The thought of losing her to her father's cruelty left a pit in my stomach. "Then we'll figure it out together," I insisted, not entirely sure what we would do next, but driven by the urge to shield her from the suffocating grip of her world. "What if all you can offer is a fantasy?" she whispered, tears glistening in her eyes. "You don't know how my father operates. He has eyes everywhere. If he finds out I've even spoken to you, I can't put you in danger." Her fear was palpable, and despite the storm swirling around us, I reached out to brush a stray tear from her cheek. "You're not putting me in danger. Risking everything means we believe there's a chance for us," I said. "And I believe in you, Lily. I believe you're stronger than you think." Just then, the door creaked open wider, but not from her father. It was one of the staff members, a kind-eyed woman with silver streaks in her hair, the chief housekeeper named Margot. She paused, surprised to see us, her brow furrowing in concern. "Miss Lily, what are you doing in here? Your father is looking for you." Lily instinctively stepped back, leaving the warmth of our connection. "I just needed some air." "I'll be right out," she stammered, her voice barely above a whisper. Margot's wise gaze darted back and forth, weighing the situation as if measuring the strands of fate in front of her. "You both look like you've seen a ghost," she remarked softly. "I can cover for you, if need be." Unexpected kindness washed over me as I locked eyes with her, a silent understanding passing between us. "I think we really want to go outside away from here," I said, my heart pounding with the audacity of the suggestion, yet I couldn't help but hope. Margot took a breath, her expression shifting to one of determination. "Meet me at the back door in 5 minutes," she whispered. "I can give you a little freedom, but you must promise to be careful. I fear what might happen if your father discovers you've gone." Hope ignited in Lily's eyes, if only for a flickering moment. "Thank you, Margot," she whispered with a tremor of gratitude, and suddenly, the world didn't seem quite so dark. "No more time for lingering," Margot urged gently, taking a cautious glance over her shoulder. "Go now." As we hastily exited the hidden nook, I could feel Lily's anxiety whirling around us like storm clouds, threatening to consume any semblance of serenity. "What if this is all a trap?" she whispered, skepticism twinging at the edges of her voice. Sometimes the boldest steps required faith, a belief in kindness even when cruel intentions loomed large. "We'll just have to trust in Margot," I replied, a flicker of warmth knitting my resolve. "And trust ourselves to find our way." We hurried through the mansion, the echoes of opulence feeling like a fable too far removed from our reality. Each creaking floorboard beneath our feet reminded me of the life we were stepping away from, a life woven with strings of expectation and dread. When we reached the back door, we found Margot waiting, urgency in her posture and purpose in her eyes. She pushed the door open slightly, peering out into the shadowy garden beyond. "Go quickly, and stay hidden," she said, peering into the darkened expanse of the world outside. Lily looked at me, a question hanging in the air: what if this was our moment to break free? The wildflowers swaying nearby beckoned with a promise of life beyond the gilded walls. Together? I asked, my heart hammering in anticipation. Together, she confirmed. Determination forging a bridge between our fears. But just as we stepped beyond the threshold, the oppressive aura of the mansion felt like a phantom holding its breath behind us. Freedom was just steps away, yet a haunting slam from within the house echoed through the peace of the garden. Lily froze, fear flickering in her gaze as her father's voice boomed through the corridors, more furious than before. Lily! Where are you? Nerves prickled down my spine as the gravity of our defiance crashed upon us like waves. All of our courage felt like a fragile sail in a tempest of threats. And just then, amid our shared panic, Lily's expression changed, her blue eyes narrowing with newfound resolve. I want to go back, she stated softly yet with profound intensity. No matter what happens, I refuse to live my life controlled by him. The air became thick with the weight of her declaration, each word a lifeline for us both. But as we stepped forwards, breaking free from the confines of the mansion, an unexpected figure materialized at the edge of the garden. Lily's father, looming like a monument to intimidation, his arms folded tightly as he surveyed the scene. In that moment, the world around us felt frozen, the harsh reality of the choices we were making crashing in on us. His presence loomed like a storm, and as a flicker of hope ignited in my heart, I realized the fight was only just beginning. The chill of the evening air wrapped around us like an unwelcome shroud as we stood paralyzed at the edge of the garden, caught between the promise of freedom and the oppressive threat of Lily's father. His silhouette was menacing, casting a long shadow that seemed to swallow the last remnants of our hope. My heart thundered in my chest, adrenaline surging as I instinctively stepped in front of Lily, a futile instinct to shield her from his fury. "What have you done, Lily?" he bellowed, his voice carrying an ocean of contempt. "Do you think you can just abandon everything I've built for you? You are nothing without me. It's me who will decide what I am." Lily shouted back, her voice rising against his storm. I had never heard her so fiercely resolute, her defiance striking a chord that reverberated through the night. But the momentary spark of bravery was met with a wave of venom as he stepped forward, his eyes narrowing. "This is about you," he sneered, "this is about your selfishness. You think you can just run away and leave your responsibilities behind? We are the only ones standing here," I jumped in, finding my own courage as I addressed him directly, "and we aren't going back. She deserves more than what you've suffocated her with. Who are you to speak to me like that?" He shot back, eyes blazing with anger, making me feel as small as a pebble skimming the surface of a turbulent ocean. "You think you can offer her strength? You're just a distraction. A poor girl dreaming of a life that never belonged to her." My chest tightened and a wave of despair washed over me at his words. Underneath his contempt lay a truth that I couldn't deny: my reality was no match for the lavish world he ruled. But as I glanced at Lily next to me, her face alight with determination even in the face of her father's vitriol, I felt a flicker of strength ignite within me too. Love isn't defined by wealth. I shot back with all the fervor I could muster. It's about standing for each other when the world says you shouldn't. She looked at me, her eyes glistening with both fear and hope. It was a look that anchored me and urged me to continue. "You can be free," I said softly to her, "even if he doesn't see you. Even if he tries to break you, you'll rise. You're not defined by your last name." Her breathing steadied, and for a moment, the cacophony around us faded into a murmur as she stepped slightly forward, her father's anger clashing fiercely with her newfound resolve. "You've held me captive for too long. I will not let you dictate my life, or my heart, anymore," she declared, the quiver in her voice replaced with an unwavering strength. Her father's face contorted with disbelief, but before he could respond, he was interrupted by a sudden commotion coming from inside the mansion. The soft hush of the night was shattered by frantic footsteps and muffled voices, and the once stable ground beneath us trembled with the uncertainty of what lay ahead. "Lily! A new voice called out, panic laced through its tone. It was Margot. Her silhouette appeared at the threshold of the door behind her father. You need to come back inside. It's not safe. What do you mean? I asked, looking between them as anxious tremors snaked through me. There are people in the house, Margot rushed, the emotion thick in her voice. Your father has enemies, Lily. They're here, and they won't hesitate to use you to make a point. Lily turned to me, her palms trembling slightly as she processed this new danger. What are we going to do? My heart sank further, the realization washing over me like a tidal wave. We were trapped, not just between her father and freedom, but in the eye of an incoming storm of conflict that could tear apart everything we hadn't built but dared to dream. But even as the fear clawed at my insides, a sense of accountability ignited in my chest. You are not a pawn in anyone else's game, Lily. Not now, not ever. I declared, the words echoing with the pleas of so many lost and broken dreams. She nodded, determination shining in her eyes as Margot's frightened gaze revealed a single flickering candle of solidarity amidst the chaos enveloping us. But just as we turned to flee back into the darkness of the garden, the atmosphere shifted sharply, a heavy silence descending, thick as molasses. Then, from within the shadows of the mansion, a figure emerged, shrouded in the night's cloak, a stranger, face obscured but presence unmistakably ominous. Going somewhere? The figure inquired, a distorted smile echoing the cruelty of Lily's father. The tension in the air was suffocating, and as I stood there, two paths unfolded before us, one that led back into the grasp of her father and into the danger lurking in the house, the other into the uncertain wildness of the garden, where I could barely discern the safety I had longed for. With every ounce of my being, I squeezed Lily's hand tightly, a silent vow like a comet racing through the void. No matter what happens, we'll face it together. But in that moment of unwavering allegiance, the world tilted further away from what we envisioned, the scales of fate tilting ever so precariously as we stood on the cusp of an unknown future, destiny shaping its harsh reality before our very eyes. The air thickened with unspoken dread as the stranger stepped closer, the low glint of moonlight revealing an outline of the malevolent smirk that twisted their lips. My heart raced, pounding in my ears like the drumroll of a soldier's march to war. I felt the weight of Lily's hand in mine, her grip tightening as we faced what felt like an insurmountable wall of despair. Who are you? I demanded, my voice stronger than I felt, each word an attempt to shield us both from the encroaching darkness. The stranger chuckled softly, a low, rumbling sound that sent shivers down my spine. Just a concerned friend of the family, they replied smoothly, and only then did I catch the glimpse of a flash of recognition in Lily's eyes, the way they widened slightly. Friends, she echoed softly, her voice barely above a whisper, full of disdain. If you're a friend, then why are you lurking in the shadows? This is no time for games, Lily. Your father is losing control, and he knows it. He's ready to unleash chaos to keep you in line, the voice said, dripping with an insincere sweetness that made my skin crawl. Panic rushed through me like a wildfire, mingling dangerously with the heat of Lily's defiance still burning within her. I glanced back at her father, his eyes ablaze as they took in the dynamic before him, a fragile flower blossoming from the cracks of concrete, just as threatening to him as it was beautiful. Let us go. I urged, directing our focus back toward the garden, where a sliver of freedom still shimmered beyond the reach of her father's tyrannical grip. But the stranger stepped between us and the escape we desperately sought. Do you think running will save you? They taunted, and for a moment, uncertainty raked at the resolve I was fighting to maintain. You belong to a world higher than this garden could ever offer. You think you're meant for each other, but look at where you stand. We stand in defiance of everything you represent, Lily countered, surprising me again with the assertiveness that shone through the shadows. You don't know who I am. You don't know what I'm capable of. Capable of? The stranger's laughter was tinged with disbelief. You're a game piece in an arena far more vicious than you can comprehend. Run if you can. But remember, every footstep you take drags your father's wrath behind you. And believe me, he won't let you go easily. As dread coiled in my stomach, I was reminded of the countless moments when I felt the echoes of my reality, the doubts reverberating through my veins. I had been a conqueror of my fears, yet in this instant, I felt the scales tipping. What if I was leading Lily into an abyss from which there might be no return, and just when I thought our resolve might crumble, a flicker of hope pierced through the enveloping darkness. Margot stepped forward, her voice trembling yet filled with urgency. There are other ways to escape, ways we can find together, Lily. You have people who care about you beyond the confines of your father's expectations. There's a world out there, waiting for you. Lily turned to me, her eyes brimming with tears that sparkled like diamonds, a poignant mix of fear and the relentless drive for freedom in her gaze. I don't want to be a pawn anymore, and I don't want to run endlessly. But I also can't ignore the danger. I want to put you in harm's way. Your heart is strong enough to guide us, I replied softly, squeezing her hand tighter. You have strength woven into your very soul, and I will never allow you to walk this path alone. She inhaled sharply, as if searching for that internal compass, the one that had been dulled by years of oppression. The stranger's smirk faltered, however briefly, as if sensing the shift in the air. Suddenly, there was a loud crash from somewhere inside the mansion, the echo reverberating like a call to arms. Now is not the time for indecision, the stranger hissed, glancing behind them towards the mansion. You have to choose. Fear will either bind you or set you free. Together, Lily whispered to me, her voice trembling yet resolute. I choose. Together. With a sudden surge of determination, we slipped past the stranger, propelled by a surge of adrenaline that eclipsed our fears. We ran toward the garden's edge, each step resonating with purpose, a desperate leap into the unknown. Just then, a beam of light danced across the garden, flicking to and fro, and I instinctively pulled Lily down behind the hedges, our breath quickening in perfectly matched rhythm, but as we crouched, hearts racing beneath the oppressive weight of night, I caught a glimpse of shadows moving through the last remnants of twilight, lighting the path back to the mansion. In that heartbeat of stillness, an insidious thought slithered through my mind, old doubts creeping back, whispering desperately to know the terrible truth. If we leave now, what will we lose? I wondered aloud, grappling with the gravity of what lay ahead. Everything, she breathed, as if feeling the vulnerability of that statement. But I'd rather fight for everything than live for nothing. Before I could answer, a voice drifted through the garden, something cold and familiar that sent chills down my spine. Lily, oh dear daughter, why hide in the dark? You're not in any danger. Just come home. It was her father, his tone sweet yet laced with malice, a predator beckoning his prey. Our eyes met, flooded with more questions than answers, and without another moment to lose, we took off into the night, hearts thundering against the cacophony of uncertainty. As we dashed through the expanse of open air, the warmth of hope coursed with every stride, albeit fragility shadowing close behind that eye, and that beautiful, fleeting collision of adrenaline and earnestness, I couldn't help but feel that our choices were weaving a fabric far beyond the brutality of our present. And just as we crossed into what felt like freedom, a gunshot rang out, echoing through the night, sending a jolt of terror gripping my veins and plunging everything into chaos. With uncertainty tearing at my insides like a beast starving for closure, a shocking realization swept over me: neither of us may leave this place unscathed. The weight of potential loss crushed down with an intimacy far too chilling, and a single thought echoed in the void, louder than the gunshot itself: what if this was the last choice we'd ever get to make? The echo of that gunshot hung in the air with a sinister finality as we stumbled forward, our feet pounding against the grass, a chaotic symphony of fear and adrenaline propelling us onward. Each heartbeat felt like a drum signaling the start of a race for survival. I sensed Lily's breath quickening by my side, and the urgency of our flight became palpable as we sprinted deeper into the shadows, the mansion's oppressive weight lifting slightly behind us. Where do we go? She gasped, the words spilling from her lips in hurried gasps, and I cursed myself for not having a plan ready. My mind raced, instantly scanning our surroundings for a sanctuary amidst the fear that clung tightly to us. The dense woods bordering the garden loomed ahead like a sanctuary, promising both danger and haven. There. I pointed to a thicket of trees that promised cover. The farther we could distance ourselves from her father's reach, the better. Without waiting for a response, we pivoted, making a beeline for the darkness that promised solitude. Just as we entered the thicket, I hesitated for a split second. I felt the weight of uncertainty press against me, urging me to question the choices we'd made. What if her father had a network of watchers out here just like in the mansion? But looking at Lily, her determined expression solidified my resolve. Fear had cast its shadow upon her, yet within her lay a flicker of defiance waiting to ignite. That we navigated through the tangled branches, each step and rustle seeming audacious and treacherous under the watchful gaze of the moon. The air was muggy, thick with the scent of wet earth and crushed grass. I turned to assure Lily she was safe with me, but before I could speak, she grasped my arm. "Do you hear that?" she whispered, her voice threading through the heavy air. The sounds of our escape were overshadowed by the echoing calls from her father, still insistent, like a storm brewing in the distance. "Lily! You can't hide from your destiny!" he bellowed, a powerful resonance twisting through the dark, the mockery in his tone piercing through the veil of night. We pressed on, the shadows swallowing us up, but behind that melody of fear lay a softness I couldn't ignore. In that moment, all the anger and resentment however justified shifted within me, replaced by a ferocious need to protect the glimmer of hope that Lily represented. She was a fragile candle flickering against all odds, and I would do everything in my power to keep that candle flame alive. Moments passed like lifetimes as we wound our way through the trees, the oppressive sound of her father's voice raining back terror. Then, in a sudden turn, we broke through the thicket and found ourselves in a clearing bathed in moonlight, another world entirely, the night breathing a new serenity around us. But something swelled in my gut, the unsettling feeling hadn't left me, a silent harbinger of danger that echoed in the distance. It was as if the forest was a cocoon, temporarily suspending us from reality, yet I knew we were still very much entangled in the web of uncertainty woven by her father. "We can't stay here for long," I said, glancing back towards the path we'd just taken. "We need to find somewhere safe, somewhere no one can find us." In any other context, that promise would be sounded romantic, like a quest through enchanted woods under a starlit sky. But the gravity of our situation draped a darkness over my words that twisted my stomach. "I know a place," Lily said suddenly, her voice gaining strength, a hint of determination returning to her posture. "It's just a little farther into the woods. It's my secret escape. No one knows about it, not even my father." "There's more to you than I realized," I replied, relief coursing through me like the first rays of dawn after a long night. "Lead the way." We hastened deeper into the woods, blown along by our shared resolve. I felt a torrent of emotion surging within me, a concoction of fear, hope, and something akin to longing to shield the light that shone from within her. The trees grew denser as we walked, their branches twisting together like fingers locking in a silent promise of protection, but suddenly, a rustle broke the stillness, sharp and jarring. I held my breath, instinctively gripping Lily's arm again, scanning the shadows for anything that moved, anything that refused to succumb to the darkness. It was only then that I caught sight of a figure emerging from the trees, silhouetted against the shimmering veil of moonlight. "Lily." The voice was familiar, yet laced with an undercurrent of urgency. My heart dropped when I recognized it. It was Margot. "What are you doing here?" Lily's voice trembled, a delicate blend of shock and alarm. "You shouldn't be out here." "I couldn't let you go alone," Margot replied, breathless yet resolute, her eyes darting between us as if gauging the severity of our situation. "They're searching for you. I saw them leaving the mansion. We don't have much time." "Lily, we have to go," I urged, still haunted by the sound of her father's voice echoing like an ominous storm cloud overhead. But Margot stepped forward, urgency carving worry lines across her brow. "There's something else. Your father, he knows you're escaping. He has reinforcements sweeping the area. I overheard him, he's threatening to implicate your mother if you don't return." The revelation crashed over us like a wave, pulling me under. Everything we fought to escape was now more potent, poised to strike back with devastating force. "What do you mean?" Lily gasped, her eyes wide, caught between disbelief and budding panic. They're going to use her to draw you back because they know that you would do anything to protect her, Margot explained, her words a somber fog encasing us in trepidation. You have to make a choice, Lily. Do you want to fight for your freedom or save your mother? In that heart-stopping moment, the weight of fate shifted, swirling around us like the leaves dancing in the haunting breeze. Fear wrestled with love and loyalty, poisoning the air with an unbearable tension, the clash of choices looming over us like an encroaching storm. And all I could do was grasp Lily's hand tightly, bracing myself for the inevitable struggle ahead. The chance of losing everything felt dangerously close, and it became increasingly clear that our fight was far from over. The forest's whispers felt like a spell, and for a fleeting moment, we stood frozen beneath the weight of Margot's revelation. Lily's grip on my hand tightened, her body trembling like the leaves above caught in a sudden gust. It was as if she were waging an internal war, each heart-wrenching beat of indecision echoing through the silhouetted trees. My mother, she mumbled, and I could see her thoughts spiraling, each breath more labored than the last. She's been through so much already. I can't let anything happen to her. Yet, beneath that fierce protectiveness, I saw the fissures in her determination. Torn between familial loyalty and self-preservation, she seemed to shrink before my eyes, the vibrant spirit I'd admired overshadowed by a profound, disheartening burden. We're going to find a way to save her, I said, brushing back the strands of hair that clung to her cheek, comfort seeping into my fingers. But you must choose to save yourself first. You deserve that, Lily. Margot's eyes widened, sensing the struggle within my words as she stepped closer, her voice softer, laced with urgency. But what if he makes good on his threats? If we don't do anything, she is in danger. The fear woven into Margot's tone pulled me back into the present, grounding me. I couldn't deny the dread that twisted in my stomach at the thought of Lily's mother, an innocent caught in the crossfire of a chaotic struggle for freedom. Maybe we can find a way to distract them, lead them away from your mother, I suggested, though doubt punctuated my words. It was a desperate hope, but the truth hung between us like an unspoken promise. We were swimming against an unforgiving tide. Lily took a deep breath, a newfound clarity sparking in her eyes. If I go back, I can negotiate with him. We both know he won't hurt her, not as long as I have something he wants. No, Lily, I interrupted, panic surging through me like a wildfire. You can't go back there. Not after everything. The thought of her stepping willingly into that den of shadows, risking her own safety for a desperate pact, made my heart ache. Her gaze faltered but resoluteness flickered back. But I have to protect my family. This is bigger than just me, and you know it. We can't abandon hope, Margot agreed, desperation coloring her voice. Lily, trust us. We will find a way. The air was thick with indecision as we searched each other's faces for answers. And for a moment, I thought I saw something stir within Lily, a recognition of the fierceness that had brought us together, the unyielding resolve that had ignited our flight into the darkness. Finally, she nodded slowly, the flicker of life in her eyes burning brighter. Then let us come up with a plan. But we'll do it fast. Time is against us, and I won't let them use my mother as a pawn. As we began brainstorming, my heart raced ahead with an aching mix of admiration and fear. The strength she summoned wasn't just her own, it echoed through the bond we formed, a tether binding us in this chaotic world. Hope flickered in my chest, although it always seemed under siege from the surrounding despair. Just as we began to forge a tentative plan, a distant sound slashed through the filled silence, a crashing near the edge of the clearing. My heart lurched. The weight of danger bore down upon us once more, urgency forcing us back into the shadows. Hide! I hissed, my instincts overriding fear as I guided Lily and Margot behind a thicket. The air turned electric, crackling with the tension of the chase and our unshakable fears. I strained to catch a glimpse of the disturbance. A figure brushed through the undergrowth, and relief washed over me as I recognized it, Sam, one of Lily's childhood friends. But before I could call out to him, a voice echoed through the thickets like venom. Lily! I know you're out here. There's no escape for you. It was her father, rage thrumming in his tone, a sinister promise lingering in the air behind his words. The three of us exchanged frantic glances, the air held our collective breath as darkness threatened to close in. This was the moment when the weight of choices bore down upon us. Lily knew her vulnerability laid bare before her father, urging the torrent of decisions we held at bay. As Sam approached, I grasped his arm, pulling him aside to whisper the urgency of our plight. We need to move, now. I can help. I overheard. They've set traps near the perimeter to catch you, he breathed, his eyes wide with concern and fear. But we can use that to our advantage. If we can lead them there. The gears in my mind turned, crafting a potential path forward, yet it was fraught with peril. We needed to choose our next steps wisely, or the consequences could be deadly. But then, as if the world decided to hit pause on our resolve, a distant explosion rang out, shaking the very ground beneath us. The trees trembled as a sudden fire blossomed high in the sky, illuminating the night and setting our anxious hearts racing anew. Lily, they're coming! Margot shouted above the chaos, and the realization sudden, jarring crept through the design of our plans. The distraction could be our chance or our end, a gambit whose outcome was equally conceivable in success or grave loss. And as the echoes of flames danced in the distance, I caught Lily's gaze once more, a silent understanding passing between us. The battle wasn't just for freedom anymore, it was a fight for survival against something much darker, and no matter how or where we went next, nothing would ever be the same again. And then it struck me, confounding and stark a last, desperate thought as the forest echoed with further descending chaos. Perhaps in the battle for survival, we were on the brink of uncovering secrets we never anticipated, including the hidden truth of Lily's lineage and the real power it held. As the horizon brightened with flames, so too did my last shred of hope dim, leaving our choices stretched out before us like an impossible labyrinth, each path fraught with potential sacrifice. With every twist of fate, we would discover whether despair or determination would carry us through. The fiery glow in the distance turned the night into an inferno of shadows, illuminating our faces with the stark reality of our unfolding situation. My heart hammered against my ribs, the visceral rhythm matching the pulse of chaos that spread through the air like wildfire. We were hanging by a thread woven from desperation and fleeting hope, and I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being drawn into something much larger than ourselves. What do we do now? Lily asked, her eyes wide but determined, even if the uncertainty weighed heavily in her chest. There was a tremor in her voice that mirrored the slight tremble in the earth beneath us. Before I could respond, Sam's gaze flickered toward the horizon where the flames raged, worry etched deep into his brow. We have to get to a safer place. I know a way deeper into the woods, away from this madness. It's a risk, but it might buy us time. As he spoke, a new wave of urgency washed over me. Every second felt heavy with implications, every choice we made now would shape our fate. I nodded, eager to follow his lead. Okay, let us move, I said, a tinge of resolve easing the weight on my heart. With a final glance towards the encroaching threat, I gestured for Lily and Margot to follow as I stepped out from our hiding place. Sam led the way, pushing through the dense underbrush with an agility that belied his slim form. With each silent step into the depths of the forest, the sounds of destruction began to fade. But the air thickened with tension, and I could feel Lily's breath quickening beside me. I could sense the invisible thread pulling us towards both fear and strength, and I knew we couldn't allow the darkness surrounding us to extinguish the flickering light within. As we navigated the twisted pathways, I couldn't shake the feeling of predestined encounters lurking just beyond the trees. Every rustle seemed amplified, every shadow a specter of our fears, and I could feel the echoes of our past choices reverberating through the night. Finally, we reached a clearing hidden behind a thicket of elderberries. A sense of calm enveloped the air, though the weight of our situation lingered like smoke in the air. We collapsed onto the soft moss, the chill of the ground seeping up through our clothes. What now? Margot asked, drawing her knees to her chest, the flicker of worry darkening her features. We wait, Sam replied, keeping his voice low. We need to observe. The fire might draw them far enough away for us to assess the situation. I couldn't help but glance at Lily, who appeared lost in thought, her brow knitted tightly as if wrestling with unseen foes. We can't just sit here, she blurted, frustration cracking through her calm exterior. There must be something we can do. Though I understood her agitation, I also realized the fragility of our situation. If we act without thinking, we could make things worse, I urged, my voice barely rising above a whisper. We need to be smart about this. I know, she sighed, the weight of her worries radiating around us. Suddenly, something sparked in her eyes. But I've been thinking about my abilities, maybe we can use what I have. I just need courage. I felt a swell of admiration for her perseverance. Lily, whatever you choose, we're behind you, I reassured her, reaching out to squeeze her hand. We'll figure this out together. Just then, a soft whimper broke through the bare branches. My heart dropped as I turned to its source. In the corner of the clearing, huddled behind a gnarled tree, was a small dog, its fur singed and eyes wide with panic. It seemed to be lost, desperately searching for comfort amidst the wreckage. Look! Margot exclaimed, her tone softer, igniting the flash of compassion that had flickered within us. We can't leave it here. It's scared. My chest tightened at the sight. Though it would have been wise to remain hidden, something stirred, an unexpected kindness forged in the furnace of our collective hopelessness. Let us help him, I whispered, my voice a fragile thread we all connected to. We approached cautiously, the pulsing energy of fear easing just enough to allow nurturing to seep in. As we reached the trembling creature, I extended a hand slowly, speaking gently in hopes of coaxing it toward us. Hey there, little one. We're not going to hurt you, I murmured, trying to embody the warmth I wanted to share. The dog blinked at me, uncertainty etched across its face as it took hesitant steps forward. Through the chaos, kindness emerged. I felt that moment blossom as the creature finally nuzzled against me, accepting the touch of warmth and safety our group represented. Lily smiled, the first genuine smile I had seen since we entered the world of shadows. See? She said quietly, her eyes shimmering. Even in the darkest times, we can bring light. But just as I began to feel a sense of peace blanket the clearing, Sam tensed, his gaze piercing through the thick brush behind us. They're coming, he breathed, terror spilling into the atmosphere, expelling the fragile warmth that had begun to flourish. My heart lurched, and I tightened my grip around the trembling dog, my mind racing for options as danger rushed back into our lives. The chance we had taken to guide a flicker of kindness stood on the brink of disaster. Everyone, close your eyes. I hissed, desperately casting about for a way to shield us. As Lily, Margot, and Sam followed my lead, a burst of resolve crystallized within me. Perhaps the darkness wouldn't claim us just yet, but revealing the true extent of Lily's power, her connection to the emotional depth that defined her lineage was emerging faster than I could have predicted. We were a collective force, on the precipice of awakening, and just as we held on to hope, we would need to brace for a tidal wave of truth. The air chilled as we braced against the oncoming storm, our hearts intertwined in a dance that signaled both peril and potential salvation. And in that moment of shared resolve, I realized, the secrets lurking in the shadows were not merely tied to Lily's past, they belonged to all of us, each flicker of hope igniting a path we had yet to fully understand. Then, the darkness pressed in as a figure emerged from the thicket, silhouetted against the flames, its presence heralding an unknown future that felt irrevocably altered by the paths we had chosen. The world around us seemed to freeze in that heart-stopping moment. I clung to the trembling dog, the warmth of its tiny body grounding me in the midst of chaos, while I struggled to reconcile the consequences of the choices we had made. Faces emerged from the shadows, and my stomach plummeted as I recognized one of her father's men, cold and calculating, with a sneer curling on his lips as he surveyed our hiding place. Found you, sweetheart, he taunted, his eyes narrowing in on Lily, who stood rooted beside me, her determination both admirable and terrifying. The shimmering firelight cast an ominous glow on his face, illuminating the depths of betrayal in his gaze. I felt Lily's arm brush against mine, a silent vow passing between us as our fear morphed into defiance. Her breath hitched slightly, but her posture remained resolute as she stepped forward. "You will not touch me or my friends," she declared, and I marveled at how that small, luminous girl could stand so bravely against the darkness threatening to engulf us. But the man only laughed, a cold sound echoing in the thickened air. "You have no idea what you're up against, do you? This isn't just a game of hide and seek anymore. This is your father's empire and everything he built to control you with blood on his hands and power in his grasp." I hesitated, uncertainty creeping back in, each pulse of fear telling me how easy it would be to let that darkness undo all we had fought for. But I drew strength from the vivid connection between us, the bond forged through shared trials, and stepped forward. "You can't keep her captive forever. She is more than a pawn in your game." "More?" he retorted, surprise twisting his features before he regained his composure. "You think you can save her from the very chains that bind this family together? You don't know what you're dealing with." Just then, a crackling burst of energy ignited the charge between us. It seemed as though the very air shimmered, and I could feel it pulse, vibrant and electric, urging me to push further. "Lily," I whispered, as if harnessing the energy whatever we shared might just be our savior. "You can use it. You are stronger." And just like that, the world around us shifted again. I saw her resolve burn brightly, kindling the flames of her lineage, revealing the immense power that had been waiting quietly within her. The weight of the moment settled on my shoulders, and I urged her to embrace the core of who she was, all that she could truly become. Lily took a breath, the tension in her shoulders releasing as she faced the man again. "You can try to intimidate me, but I refuse to be controlled any longer. I'm not your pawn. I refuse to be a pawn for a kingdom based on blood." With a swift, decisive motion, an unseen force thrummed in the air as she extended her arms slightly outward, and in a luminous flourish, illuminating the darkness around us, a warm glow enveloped her. It was a manifestation of strength, a bond that connected us, drawing from the shared heart of our entanglement. The man faltered, eyes wide in disbelief. "What are you doing?" "I'm choosing to fight for the light. For my truth," she replied, her voice trembling yet fierce, echoing with the courage that enveloped us. I grabbed her hand, squeezing tightly as the golden glow wrapped around us, fortifying our bond against the encroaching darkness. As she unleashed her power, the shadows seemed to scream, curling away as the whispers of chaos faded into nothingness. I could feel my body vibrating with the sheer force of the energy building around us, and before I knew it, the aura expanded, pushing back against the man who had sought to snuff us out. "What is this?" he screeched, the confidence draining from his voice as he began backing away from us. "It's the power of love and unity," Lily shouted. "A force far more potent than you could ever understand." The shimmering glow gathered momentum, casting the darkness aside, revealing the dog we had sheltered, sensing the warmth as if beckoning us to embrace the strength in our fight for freedom. Then, as if the world around us exhaled, everything aligned, the dark just fell away, a curtain drawn to show the bright light at the end of the tunnel. "Go," I urged. "We need to reach the edge of the woods." With a nod, we took off into the forest, flowing like a river of light through the trees, exhilarating defeat hastily turned into an exuberant race toward freedom. I glanced back to see the dark figure trembling in the distance, lost amid the remnants of his faded authority. Step by step, we forged on, the air heavy with the promise of liberation and release as we finally emerged into the open, breaking free from the shadows that had tried to ensnare us. The weight of our burdens lifted, the path ahead glimmering with a new vitality, the dawn was breaking. And that's when we heard it, the sound of our hearts singing in unison, tangled together in the fears we had dared to face, and as the light washed over us, illuminating our path, I knew that moving forward would require facing not just the darkness of her father, but the feelings buried deep within us. But for now, we reveled in our moment, the binding of our hearts made fierce through bonds that transcended the suffocating grip of expectations, of pain, and years lost to shadows. "Where do we go from here?" Lily asked, her voice lit with a hope I hadn't seen before. I turned to look at her, my heart swelling with the beauty of our experiences, the raw emotion simmering between us. Wherever the light leads us, together. And as the sun rose, casting golden rays across the horizon, I knew then, we had conquered our fears, emerging as something more than what we had been, a testament forged in the fires of defiance. And in that moment, as our futures stretched before us, I could almost hear the echoes of a heartbeat that whispered softly the story was just beginning. As we ventured into the warmth of a new dawn, I took her hand and felt the promise for what we could still accomplish, then I smiled, knowing our lives were now interwoven far beyond the twists of fate we endured. Our hearts sung harmoniously in the light. This was our moment, and through everything, we would rise together. And as we stepped forward into the brightness that lay ahead, I was struck by the unyielding truth that true love creates a power that can sever even the most suffocating chains, leading us to a place of belonging where the shadows cannot reach. What an incredible bond we had forged, entangled lives that would ride the tides of fate hand in hand, destined to face the upcoming trials of time with a fierce and unwavering spirit that in the end, it wasn't just about survival, it was about reclaiming who we were meant to be, and with every breath shared in courage, we would not just exist, we would thrive in this world brimming with possibilities. Together, finally, we were home.